This is the lecture for the ART159 Graphic Design Layout class, the Product Landing Page Introduction lecture. So in this lecture we're going to be looking at how we are taking elements from the product brochure and applying those to a web landing page or a product page for this particular product. So a landing page and or a product page is going to be the web page on which an internet visitor first arrives on their way to some sort of important action that they want to take place. So either it's going to be some sort of home page to your product, or it's going to be a specific product page related to that. In this exercise here, you're going to be creating a professional web landing page for the same company that you designed your brochure for. And you're going to be using those same sort of elements, same images as a starting point for the content and the branding aspects of this web landing page. So we can see an example here from a previous student who is using elements from the product brochure, as we can see over here on the left, that has the interior spread, the page 1 and page 2. And applying that to this web landing page or this product page related to this. Now obviously you can see that they are changing the imagery a little bit. Instead of showing all of the variety of colors and available products, they're isolating that to just a few of those. And they're also creating some additional aspects to take into consideration. So a navigation bar up here at the top, which is common on any website to allow you to navigate through that. And the biggest difference basically between a web landing page and a product page is the fact that you can interact with these web landing pages. So typically there's going to be some buttons, whether they are call to actions like we can see here with the Shop Now button, or different product images potentially within that space. So it brings an interactive quality, a user experience to the design that is not necessarily thought of in the same way as the product brochure, because obviously with the product brochure that's going to be printed, that design is not intended to be interactive. It is intended to be viewed, where the website has that interactive quality. So to get started, I would really suggest researching other web landing pages, taking a look at the previous student examples, and also the actual product that you are featuring. Looking at the way that they're laying that out, the call to action, how they're using the Shop Now button or the Purchase button or the Find Out More button, and any ideas on special offers that they might be including on there. And really you're just trying to create the branding experience that the majority of these graphic assets should come from and relate back to that brochure that you have designed. So here we can see another example based off of the product brochure that we looked at in the last assignment. And we can see that, they're taking those elements and just considering how you would interact with this in more of a user experience. So here we can see the navigation bar up at the top. You're still including the logo. Typically that is going to be placed within this navigation bar. And you're going to have several areas that you can visit within the website. You might have some sort of search button or cart icon, or potentially even a sign-in or profile icon that would be related to that specific website. And then here you can see some promotional items that they're featuring. And then the actual product details are shown here as well, with the call to action button, the buy now, and the pricing. And then they are also including images, still images within this, but by placing the overlay of the play button here, it makes it feel like it is this video that you could potentially click into and watch. So again, thinking about that interactive quality. This student even went so far as to include this sort of chat icon down here related to the website that you might find within general websites. See another example here. Again, we see the navigation bar up at the top, particular product, call to action, imagery that's being pulled from the brochure, branding elements that are being pulled from the brochure in the background. We have this interactive slider over here on the side as well, and individual icons that help you to navigate throughout the different website. Here we can see another example where the student has taken the liberty of placing those play overlay buttons, using those still images, but making them feel like they're that interactive video related to that product. Now this particular page here is a little more dedicated to this landing page idea. That might be one of the first places you would go to for the product to then learn more or potentially shop that product. So there's kind of two ways of treating this, whether you want to create more of a landing page or whether you want to create more of a particular product page like we can see here. Obviously Samsung has a lot of different products, so they are just featuring one of those within the page that's related back to that brochure. So it kind of depends on how you want to treat that. But it is really important that you maintain that brand consistency across all the different channels that you're working on, including your brochure and any promotional goods that would include this landing page or website as well. So you want to follow those same branding guidelines as your brochure. Similar typefaces, similar images, the treatment of those should be consistent. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about the visual simplicity within the site. You have to remember that you're considering the user experience. So you want to create a clear navigation within that, including the navigation bar. Usually that's going to be at the top, is going to be important. The call to action, the concise text with clear hierarchy, and any branding elements that are needed as well. So when we're thinking about that visual simplicity, you want to take into account all the elements of the branding page user interface. Maintaining that visual simplicity and a minimalistic design is important because it improves visitor focus and helps to showcase the value of that proposition. Here we can see that they are, using these colors here and this simple imagery to really draw the viewer's focus into the center of this website here, using a clear image. They don't have a background here. They've isolated this image. We have this sort of pull quote, and the call to action button is very clear. They're using these contrasting complementary colors to again draw the viewer's eyes into the space and really encourage them to navigate to the areas of the page that you want them to navigate to, which is typically going to be that call to action button. Next, you want to think about that navigation bar. The purpose of a navigation bar is to, again, help the user browse through your website effortlessly. So a navigation bar is usually placed at the top of your website. Typically, you are going to have your logo either on the left, on the right, potentially centered, and then you're going to have a few different buttons that are going to help them to navigate as well. Typically, this is going to be text, such as what we can see here in the space, depending on how these are being broken up or what you want these to be positioned. But I would encourage you to follow a similar sort of rhythm. And what I do tend to see that happens a lot is students tend to make the logos very large within the space. And we do not need to do that. Really, the logo should be a very, very small element within your landing page, as you can see from the previous examples that we looked at. They are not overbearing with their logos. They are simply sitting, usually centered or somehow positioned where they have some breathing room within that top navigation bar. Next, we want to look at the call to action, or CTA. And this is, again, a prompt on a website, in this case, that tells the user to take some sort of specified action. So a call to action is typically written as a command or an action phrase, such as sign up or buy now, and it generally takes the form of some sort of button or a hyperlink within the web page. In the previous examples that we looked at, we could see these call to action buttons, and again, these are highlighted within the space, drawing the viewer's eyes to that, helping you to click into that and create that sort of purchase or sign up or learning more, whatever it may be. So you can see that they have different shapes around these, whether it's a sort of pill shape that we can see or this rounded rectangle here. It's really up to you how you want to use that, but I suggest using some sort of button for your call to action within the space. And then your concise text and hierarchy. Be consistent with what you used in your brochure, but remember that you need to reference web fonts for your selection. You don't necessarily need to be web-safe fonts because we are not doing the design of the actual website here, but I do want you to consider typefaces that are legible and easily accessible. So if you're using something like more decorative typefaces, even like we can see here with and Learn All About and The Great Whiskey Every Month, not every typeface is going to be available for the web. In some cases, you may have to use imagery for your text, but that text, when you use it as imagery, is not going to be searchable within the actual web page. It's not going to be within the code. So it sort of disrupts some of the search engines there. So it's better to use web-safe text that is appropriate within the branding. Now in our case, you can pull typically from the text that you've used from your brochure, as long as it's not too decorative within the space. And obviously for things like logos, those would be images that you would bring into the website as well. And that goes into branding elements. So again, as previously mentioned, it's imperative to know and promote your brand. And one of the best ways to do that is to be consistent with that visual point of view. Whether they are looking at your brochure or whether they are looking at your website, there should be consistency between those two. And the logo is really the face of the business, which is why you should place it somewhere visible within the brochure. And then also thinking about those different sizes within the web page itself. Now, we used it very large within the cover of the brochure, but again, we're scaling that down here for the use of the web. So thinking about the placement and where that can be related, typically near the navigation bar within the space. So your task is going to be to create a rough layout using the size required from the assignment sheet and transferring the same photos and the same typefaces, the color theme, and the style from your brochure file to your web landing page file, making sure to maintain that visual simplicity, add a minimalistic design to improve the visitor's focus, and also include a navigation bar with some sort of clear call to action within the space. And that concludes the lecture for the product brochure landing page. Please reach out if you have any questions.